Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And I'm going to be doing some test hands against the fully established meta boards. And I also have, okay, so I also have, like, all the good hand traps that I feel people are going to be running this format. And I'm just going to kind of do different combinations of them. And just see if my test hands can play through it. I don't have Imperm here, but just consider Valor and Imperm like the same card. So what I'm going to do first is start with hand traps, and then I'll move up to the tri-board. So you see the Revolt, the Appaloosa, and the Double Dragon Lords. And then the IP and the Ultimate is for the Drytron board. So I'm just doing Drytron and Tri for right now because those decks are the most popular, the most highly represented decks. The only other thing that I could think of that I would see more is Prank Kids. But I'm just going to do these because these have like arguably the better boards, like the best boards. And there's sometimes some of the hardest matchups for this deck. And it's going to be DIS, Dogmatic Invoke SHADDOLLs, up against these established boards. So let's see how it goes. I'm going to power shuffle so I can give myself some better RNG. And I'll start with the hand traps. So I'm going to slide this here, slide that there. And we'll just start with something very simple. We're just going to start with Ash Valor. Then we'll move up to the higher impact ones like Droll, Droll, Lancia. I'm going to always do at least 2. Because this deck should always be able to play through at least 1. You know, if you can't play through 1, it's just not a good deck. So let's power shuffle. And while I'm doing this, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I am trying to grow. I also would like to make a full-time job out of this. This is something that I want to do for a living. So if you guys are willing to support me in any way, shape, or form, I would greatly appreciate it. I have options. I have a Patreon. I have a Discord. I also have Team Kings of Games merchandise. Any of those are ways to support me. Please give me a second so I can calm these dogs down.
Stop.
Alright, so we're up against Ash Valor for right now. So let's see how it goes. So we're drawing Super Poly, Genius, Alistair, Super Poly, and SHADDOLL Fusion. Alright, so I would say this hand definitely does fold to Ash Valor, because all they would have to do is just sequence it correctly, meaning Valor, the Alistair, and Ash, the SHADDOLL Fusion, and I'm left with Super Poly. So at that point, I basically have little to no follow-ups at all, and the only interaction that I would have on my opponent's turn would be actually fusing with the Alistair and the proper attribute my opponent has in Super Poly. So already off the bat, I know that that hand is going to fold to Ash and Valor. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and shuffle and draw another hand. And I'm not being biased, I'm not trying to show, I'm not trying to give myself better hands and make this deck look better. I'm just being realistic. That's why I power shuffled. And I'm not even going to sequence the hand traps incorrectly just to make it look like I can play through them. You know, that's also just going to eliminate a lot of hating comments. So let's start with our next hand. So we're drawing droplets, L, meltdown, another meltdown, and L. So we drew double meltdown, double L, and droplets. That's really unfortunate. I would definitely say, I mean, you could play a bit more defensively, and you do have more follow-ups, so, like, your meltdown would get you to Alistair, Alistair would get Valored, and you, unfortunately, do not have a doll in your hand to chain L to make Valor miss its target, but you do have Droplet to kind of survive, and another meltdown, and, you know, in theory, if you draw another SHADDOLL, you know, you should be lit for your next turn. So that hand is not going to do it either. And neither of those hands were bad hands. This is just the reality of the format, and this is just how it is. If they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't. It's always going to be like that. So let's see my next hand. So I'm drawing Windy and Beast and Invocation. I keep drawing Alistair. This is crazy. So Windy and Beast, Invocation, Alistair, and another Invocation. Wow, dude. When you do it on camera, it's just different. I keep drawing multiples, so this hand definitely should be able to push through him. So I would always start with Alistair just to get hand traps out the way. that would more than likely be met with Valor, because a lot of people just assume that this is the dogmatic invoke SHADDOLL deck, and they want to hold their Ash for the Nadir Servants and the SHADDOLL Fusion. This is just true. So this would get Valored. I would then just activate Invocation, and I think to protect myself from hand traps, I would actually turn Alistair into Moon Maiden, Invocation into a Macabre, so that I don't even have to worry about any other hand traps. So then I would just Invocation add Alistair back to hand. Moon Maiden would be banished, and then I would activate this other Invocation in my hand. So, I mean, drawing multiples this time actually didn't hurt. So we're sending Beast and Windy. We can either send Beast or Windy, or we can end on Winda right now. My problem with ending on Winda is I prefer to summon it on my opponent's turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summon Op. And I'll chain block 1 Windy, 2 Beast. No one's going to Ash Beast. They're just not. They're going to hold the Ash for the Op Cologne, and that's just the reality. I'm just being realistic here. So we're going to draw L off Beast, resolve Windy. Since I just drew L, now I'm going to summon Squamata, because I prefer to fuse with Squamata on my opponent's turn because I can get any effect I need. This is a huge part of the toolbox. If I need an aerial, I dump the aerial. If I need a dragon, I dump the dragon. Summoning Squamata to use El SHADDOLL Fusion on your opponent's turn is always going to be more useful than any other doll, because he can be whatever you need him to be for the situation. So it's a lot smarter and a lot more heads up to just summon Squamata and just get preparation. So I drew L. So what I would do next is I would take the Op, and I would go ahead and link into a Gravity Controller. They would chain Ash, I would chain Macabre, discard the Alistair, negate it. Op would then resolve, and since I feel that El SHADDOLL Fusion is a more powerful card than Schism, and it plays around more, what I would do is get myself a bit more advantage so that Macabre can still have fodder. So what I would do is I would actually just go ahead and add a Hedgehog and discard it, and use Hedgehog to search something like Genius that I know is very expendable. Just so that Macabre can still have that monster negate, and I could still summon Winda or Construct, whether I'm using the Gravity Control and the Squamata, or the Macabre plus the Squamata after he's used his effect. So that hand does play through both those hand traps and gives you follow-ups, sets you up really well. Alright, so we're what, like 7 minutes in? So now I'm going to move it up. I'm going to do 3 attempts for each combination of hand traps and then get into the established meta boards. So next, we're going to go pretty big on it. Let's go with... I really want to say let's go with Droll and Lancia. The next one, I would do like Gamma Nibiru or Gamma Ash. I really don't want to use Nibiru as an example against this deck, because Nibiru is a terrible card against this deck. So I feel like it's just not fair for the sake of this video, because you guys know this deck's either not going to play into Nibiru or it's always going to have a Macabre up. So I feel like what's the point of even using Nibiru? I'm just going to stick with Droll and Lancia. This is a lot more powerful than Ash and Valor. This is way harder for this deck to play around. The only time that you can consistently play through these hand traps is with your SHADDOLL cards. The Dogmatica portion of your deck gets hurt by Droll a lot, and the Invoked portion of your deck gets hurt by Lancia and Droll and Lockbird. So this is where like SHADDOLLs elevate your ceiling, in the sense that they actually give you strengths to circumvent the natural weaknesses that, like the super obvious weaknesses that the deck would have. So the only way I would see myself playing through these is if I draw dolls. And that's just the reality of it. Or unless I like normal Alistair, you know, get drolled, and then they Lancia me, so they threw two hand traps at me just to bait one card out, you know, just to bait out one card. So we're drawing Golden Lord, Windy, Nadir Servant, SHADDOLL Fusion, Invocation. Absolutely going to be able to play through these. So I would start with SHADDOLL Fusion just to bait Ash, so that my Nadir Servant can resolve. So I'd actually SHADDOLL Fusion first. And obviously this is going to resolve. There's no responses here. And we're going to pull out Construct, Chain Block. So if this resolved, you're no longer playing around Ash. I'm just saying that right now. Like, if this resolves, you're not playing around Ash. You're not worried about it. No one in their right mind would let this card resolve. Whether you're going first or second, it doesn't matter. They're going to Ash this just to deny you to start your plays up. Because if they hold their Ash, it diminishes in value more and more because you chain block. So now you're going to be playing around cards like Valor, Gamma, and Ghost Spell. So in order to properly play around it without losing complete value out of construct, you're gonna have to make construct chain link 1 to deny Gamma. And if they have a Veiler, they can Veiler her. If they have a Skullmeister, they can Skullmeister Windy. You've traded 2 cards with them, and you still have Nadir Servant in hand. But with Droll and Lancia, there's nothing they can do. So we're actually gonna everything's gonna resolve. For this particular play, I'm gonna set up an L SHADDOLL fusion play again. So I'm gonna dump L, and Windy's going to resolve and summon Squamata. I always pick L over Schism. A lot of people do not. In fact, almost everybody and their mother pick Schism, but it doesn't play around enough, and it's more susceptible to other things that L is just not susceptible to. I always play it safe. Better safe than sorry. So we have not added from our deck to our hand yet. We have not banished, so these cannot even be activated yet. And this just goes in turn to show you what I was saying, like about the SHADDOLL portion of your deck not caring about these cards. These are good cards, not saying they're bad, but the SHADDOLL portion of your deck, that's why it raises your ceiling so much. We're going to target the L and add it to our hand. Then we are going to activate Nadir Servant. We're going to send off Cologne. And we're going to add ourselves a copy of Ecclesia. We don't know they have Droll, so we're not about to pretend like we do. And then we are going to attempt Op Cologne. They're going to change Droll to Op Cologne's effect. And what I would do in this particular scenario is I would actually use the Op Cologne to add the Windy from grave to hand, and I would discard the invocation. That's just what I would do. Because you still added a card to your hand, you still discard, but if you put Op Cologne back with his effect, you would not discard because nothing was actually added to your hand. And you are totally playing around Lancia the entire time. So yes, you do play around Droll and Lancia with that particular hand. Let's go into another one. I'm not gonna summon Golden Lure. I'm not gonna overextend just because. Like I'm not the type that's just gonna do something just because I can. I'm gonna do it if I need to, and if I don't need to, I'm gonna hold off on it. And that's how you avoid playing into hand traps that you just shouldn't be playing into. It's just a smart thing to do. So I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna add Gamma in the mix, and it's good. That's when it's gonna get pretty intense, because I'm gonna be playing around like Droll, Lancia, and Gamma all at the same time. Or we could even, you know what? I think a better combination would be Ash, Gamma, Droll. Then we're gonna set it up to 3 hand traps, and then we'll move to the fully established boards. So let's see. We're drawing Squamata, SHADDOLL Core, Super Poly, Squamata, and Talent. Okay, so we're not going to be able to make any plays on our turn, but we can play on our opponent's turn. So essentially, yeah, this hand does beat those cards because we don't play into anything. So what I would do is just set, and set. And you can just make interactive plays on your opponent's turn. So yeah, of course that hand plays around it. Is it as powerful? No, but you do have Super Poly and you do have Core, so you have multiple options for whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do one more, because I think that's attempt number 2, and I said I'd do 3 tries. So we're going to do one more. Alright, so we're drawing Nadir, Squamata, Hedgehog, L SHADDOLL Fusion, and Windy. So again, we're going to be able to play through this extremely well. So what I would do, because I feel Construct is the most powerful play starter, is I would actually normal summon Hedgehog, link it into Moon Maiden, and then activate L, and fuse with the Squamata and the Moon Maiden. And I would summon Construct. Oh, I think I forgot to put the other one back. Oh, no, I didn't. Never mind. Construct 1. So, like, what this would play into, in theory, is Ash Veiler. Because if you go Construct 1, Squamata 2, they can chain Ash to the Squamata, and then chain Veiler to their Ash on the Construct. But then you still have Nadir Servant, and you could still link this into Gravity Controller, add L back. So, like, examples, even though we're not doing that scenario right now, this hand does play and beat Ash and Veiler. Because they would they would literally Ash the Squamata, and they would Veiler the Construct, denying both plays. You would then just link Construct into Gravity Controller, grab L back, and then activate Nadir Servant. And it's just crazy, because you have 2 Windas, or a Winda plus another follow-up play to make on your opponent's turn. So these are resolving. What I would do here, I don't like to full combo with aerial and stuff. Like I said, I don't overextend when it's not necessary. So what I would actually do is we're still going to set up L. So what we're going to do is we're going to dump core. I'm thinking about dumping core and schism. And yeah, actually I'm going to dump core and schism. I'm going to dump core and I'm going to dump schism. Use core to target schism, add it to my hand. Link the construct off into gravity. I have not added from deck to hand yet. I haven't even done anything that could be banished. Construct effect, add the... You know what, honestly? We could add core, and then when we resolve Nadir Servant, we can just discard the core as part of the resolution of Oclone and then add El SHADDOLL Fusion anyways. The only difference is we wouldn't be setting Squamata up. So instead, you could just add El SHADDOLL Fusion, then discard Windy off your Oclone so that you can summon Squamata and have them diffuse into. So there's just options. I would probably go this route just to maintain maximum card advantage. So I would add core back to hand. I would activate Nadir. You know, Oclone's effect. Separate chains, so I would go Nadir, I would add Ecclesia, I would attempt Oclone, they would chain Droll and Lockbird, and what I would do is I would just add from my grave to my hand instead. So I would literally, at this point, I would add El SHADDOLL Fusion, and then I would just discard Windy. And it's just super duper free. So essentially, all the Droll did was deny me punishment, but I could still summon Squamata off the Windy, and I have El SHADDOLL Fusion, Core, and I have Schism, so I have big plays. So, yep, all three hands were able to play through Droll and Lancia. And Droll and Lancia against Dogmatica Invoked, that portion of your deck are really powerful. So it just goes to show, like I said, the SHADDOLLs really do actually give you a way higher ceiling. And that's why I don't think Dogmatica Invoked is good enough by itself. You really do. You'd rather play a SHADDOLL deck and add the Dog in the Invoked than play Dog Invoked and add SHADDOLLs. Because the SHADDOLLs are the best part of your deck, in my opinion. So now we're stepping the game up. We're going to 3 hand traps, and then I will move into the established meta boards. I'll try my best to get what I can. I mean, I'm already 17 minutes in, so probably not going to get a lot, but I'm still going to do at least hand traps. Maybe I'll just do the established boards in a separate video. So we're up against Ash, Gamma, and Droll. Let me power shuffle. I did a lot of digging. Alright, and we're done. And so now I'm just gonna finish shuffling. And we're up against 3 really good hand traps against this deck. I just decided to not test Nibiru, because I just know this deck just really doesn't vote to Nibiru. Even if they have like Nibiru Veiler, you still have Schism and El SHADDOLL Fusion, and it's just, you're not outing everything. So this is the hand we're drawing. We're drawing Foolish Burial, Hedgehog, Invocation, L, and Super Poly. This is an interesting hand. As far as playing, I would say, conservatively, this is a good hand to play conservative, because I have so many options, right? So examples, I could set SHADDOLL plays up by going Foolish, dump Windy, Windy effect. If they ash it, more than likely they will not. Or I can play even more conservative, and I can literally go activate Foolish, and this is what I would end up doing. So I would activate Foolish, I would actually dump Alistair, and then I would go ahead and activate Invocation. I would send Hedgehog from hand, and I would banish the Alistair. And then I would summon my Kaliga, and now there's only one hand trap they can use, because Kaliga's up. So I'd be activating Hedgehog, and they would just decide. So now they're in a situation where they're like, if I hand trap Hedgehog, that's my one monster effect right there, but also for them, it's like, which hand trap do they want to use? So it's kind of like a pickle that they're in, because the 3 hand traps they have just pretty much got shrunk down to 1. So if I were them, I would probably hold the, the Ash. Because Gamma's more likely to be dead the next turn as soon as you even attempt to play, she'd probably just want to Gamma and hold the Ash. Because Gamma can be dead, so just for the simple fact that they know that I can't activate any more monster effects and they just want to deny me any other card advantage, they would probably just Gamma the Hedgehog for the simple fact that there's nothing else that they can hand trap anyways, because I'm not activating any other monster effects due to Kaliga. So they Gamma the Hedgehog, I would just Invocation, add my Alistair back, and I'm sitting on a Kaliga. So that's a very conservative hand. But playing conservative, you see where it gets you, and that's why I do that. Like I said to you guys, I don't activate cards just because I can. Like, I'm not the I'm going to Ash and Upstart kind of person. Like, I'm going to activate it if I need to. And if I don't need it, I'll just hold it. Because a lot of times when you hold plays, then it becomes that mind game where, like, your opponent thinks, well, if he had it, he would have activated it. So they start pretty much speculating what's in your hand, and they start automatically deducing that your hand's not as good as it really is because you're actually holding your more powerful plays for when you need to use them. And that's just like the difference between a good player and a very average player. So I'm going to do another one. So let's see here. 21 minutes in. Some drawings. Oh my goodness. I guess I didn't shuffle good enough. This is almost identical to the last hand. So we're drawing L, Hedgehog, Super Poly, Meltdown, and Ecclesia. So we would definitely start with the Meltdown. I mean, if you're playing around Droll, you still want to start with the Meltdown just to get access to Alistair. Because honestly, if you start with the Ecclesia, like, the thing is, you're locked out of your extra deck, right? So we'd start with Alistair. We'd get Drolled. And then from here, we would normal Alistair, link him off, summon out Moon Maiden, and then we'd go ahead and activate L-Shell Fusion. And we do have protection from Meltdown, so a lot of this is going to be safe. Versus Ash and Gamma, a lot of this is going to be very, very safe. Thank God you actually didn't have to activate Alistair, so the Droll actually helped you, because if they Gamma the Alistair, you would have took more negs to make a construct. So Alistair essentially traded a Droll with you and still gave you a light attribute to keep you up on card economics. So we can't resolve Hedgehog because we're under Droll, but we can still resolve Construct with the protection from Meltdown. So what I would do in this particular scenario, because I do not have enough Shaddolls to actually keep playing, is I would actually just dump the Schism, right? Yeah, we really don't have a choice. I would just dump the Schism. Yeah, because what else could I dump? Oh, I could dump L. Okay, that's actually the smarter play. I mean, I could dump Core, because Core actually helps to play around Ghost Spell and Cosmic, and El-Shaddol Fusion is just a better card. So that would also keep me up on my El-Shaddol Fusion play, so I would dump Core, add L back. I forget, sometimes I'm literally playing Core. I would link Construct off into Gravity Controller. The Construct to target Core would be Gamma or it wouldn't be Gamma. It's like if they do, you know, I don't get a play. So I'm just going to pretend like they do just so I don't get a play so you guys don't think I'm being biased. So I would just Gamma the Construct here. I can't add Core back. I still have at least El-Shaddol Fusion. And at that point, I'm staring at an Ash that I won't even be able to play into because I can't search anymore. So essentially, what I did with this hand was trade 2 for 2 with my opponent, but I did not get ahead. I'm not actually able to capitalize on anything else. Do I have follow-ups? Yes. But basically, my opponent can just play Solitaire, essentially. So there's one more test, and this is going to be the last one because that was test number 2. The hand was good, though. Definitely was good. So now... Alright, so let's move to the last one. And... dang, 25 minutes practically. Yep, I'll just do established boards on another video, you guys. Because I don't even want to try to rush it. So we're drawing the Deer, Foolish, Ecclesia, L. Can I get a doll, please? Dang, I keep drawing Hedgehog. I drew Hedgehog like 3 times in a row, and I only play 1. for sure we can combo. I would more than likely start with L. I'd be able to add Ecclesia from my graveyard to my end, so I would start with L. I'd probably actually activate L in draw phase. I do mention that in my profiles too, how this plays around Droll. So this is not being biased, this is actually what I would do in real life. So we would L in draw phase, dump Ecclesia and Hedgehog. This plays around Droll and Valor. So this is actually one of the smartest plays you can make. We go 1 Construct, Hedgehog 2. I truly do not believe that they would Ash a Hedgehog. I just don't think so. So I feel both would resolve. Hedgehog would grab a Squamata. Construct would resolve dumping a Core. And Core would then add the L from grave to hand. And then we transition into main phase. We can link the Construct into Gravity, affect to target Core. With this get Gamma, I don't think that's a good Gamma. I think that's a very poor Gamma. If they Gamma me, like, you know, obviously then I'm low on attributes, right? Like I can't, in theory, I can't actually resolve El SHADDOLL Fusion, but they don't know the composition in my hand, and I just don't think that's a good Gamma. Because they don't even, they're supposed to hold their Gamma from my Alistair. That's what they're supposed to do. So I'm very positive that they would not Gamma a Contra, because essentially what that equates to is they're trading Gamma for a Core. And I feel most people would just hold their Gamma for Alistair. Because sometimes if you summon Alistair and your opponent Drolls you get a free Macabre, so sometimes it's actually better to Gamma the Alistair. You know, it's just better. And it also cuts off the Dogmatica portion of your deck. A lot of the times, I mean, right now I have an extra deck monster, but normally Gamma on Alistair is just insane. So we'd add the Core, and then from here, we'd go ahead and activate Nadir Servant. They would Ash that. I feel they would Ash that. They just have to, honestly. They just don't even want to let that card resolve. So they would Ash that. I would Foolish here. And I guess we can make it look like a play of desperation and dump Windy. Because maybe in their mind, I don't have any other SHADDOLLs, but they know I have Squamata and Core and L. Those three are public knowledge. So it's like, do they Gamma the Windy or do they not? So that's another thing. Like, it's kind of difficult to hand trap this deck sometimes because you really don't know what's coming next, and the stuff that you're afraid of when you haven't seen it yet, you always think your opponent's trying to bait you. You're like, oh, he hasn't shown me Alistair yet. He's probably trying to bait me. So what I would do for here, I would summon the Beast, or actually, I would summon Falco. I would summon Falco here if they didn't obviously Gamma that, but. Again, so this hand pretty much made a lot of their hand traps lose their value. Like, sure, you could Ash Nadir. Sure, you actually could have Gammaed, you know, Construct. But let's say they Ash Nadir, right? And let's say they actually Gammaed the Construct, so I don't get Core to my hand. You know? And my Foolish resolves, right? So if my Foolish resolves, then I would just summon another, like, I would summon something like Beast to maintain card advantage. And no matter what, whether they Ash or Gamma this or Ash or Gamma that, even through Ash and Gamma, because unfortunately I'm not able to be Drolled since I played around in draw phase, I would still get access to a Winda or anything that I need for my SHADDOLL engine, and the SHADDOLLs are the most important part of this deck. So yeah, you do beat all three of those hand traps. You actually beat them 2 out of 3 of the times that you were up against them. So yeah, that just shows you right there that this deck is very high ceiling. It's pretty skillful. And there's a lot of cool tricks where you can actually dodge stuff like Fleur de Lis. Like, I say it all the time in profiles, but I don't think people really listen in profiles. They just skim through for the list. They get the list and they go. So they miss out on all the good nuggets. And they normally ask questions that I actually answered, but a lot of people just skip. But if you guys listen, you know, in those profiles, and I'm saying that, I say stuff like this all the time. I'm always talking about how L plays around Sanctum, Anti-Spell, Imperial Order, Valor, Droll, Fleur de Lis, Schism in the mirror match. It plays around so much. This is why this is my personal favorite of the SHADDOLL Spells and Traps. This is why this one is the one got hit on the ban list. You guys would have thought, oh, Konami would hit SHADDOLL Fusion to 1. No, SHADDOLL Fusion stayed at 3. They hit L for a reason. It dodges so much. That's why. It's really good. And that's going to end the profile. It's going to end the video, you guys. If you guys stick around, I'm going to do a couple more. So I'm not going to upload them back to back, but I'm going to do a couple more. I'm going to test against meta boards, and I hope you guys enjoy that because this is some realistic content. I mean, this is stuff you guys should expect, and pretty much watching how I play around it and play through these hand traps should more than likely give you a little bit of insight on how you could do if you were in that situation too. But with all that said, God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And deuces.